A lot of things come to mind when you hear the name Gavin Newsom. Add the word civil war to that list. Take a look.
Stop these guys, these idiots that are jumping up on cars, that are burning these Waymos. These people, that's a disgrace. And the impact they're having on our democracy, there's a lot at risk here. I mean, this is not just a simple act of disobedience. They should be arrested. They should be held accountable. Anyone who attacks any innocent person, including a law enforcement person that's lawfully doing their job, they're members of our community just like everybody else. They go to the same churches. They're good human beings. And, you know, just because we don't like Donald Trump, just because we don't like their orders, doesn't mean you have the right to hurt or harm people. And that goes for them as well. And we'll hold them, everybody, to a higher level of accountability. But that's not what Trump is after. He's not for peacemaking. He's here for war. He wants a civil war on the streets of America, not just here. He's testing the boundaries by nationalizing the federal guard.
In a piece for theblaze.com, Victor Davis Hanson argues that Newsom is channeling Confederate President Jefferson Davis. Here to give his expert analysis is our man in D.C., and we miss him so much. Chris Bedford, it's great to have you back on the show. So let's get right into this. Why do we see clips of Gavin Newsom spewing off about Donald Trump when there are cop cars and Waymos now that are on fire still in the streets of L.A.?
Because he kind of has to, right? He's stuck in a difficult spot at this point. He's been put there. I've got a piece coming out in the morning about how the left and the White House and the situation in California in general have put him in this extremely difficult position. And now he's got to try and really walk a tightrope, and he has completely failed the tests here. He's failed now 2 major fires that have broken out in his city in a single year. One man-made and one natural, although the natural one was exacerbated, and both of them completely and totally exacerbated by conditions on the ground laid by Democratic politicians and his allies in Los Angeles and throughout the state of California. But he can say a couple of nice things here and there, and then that interview, he said some very correct things about attacking law enforcement officers. You're not allowed to do that. But when law enforcement officers in the state are refusing to back up federal officers who are coming under attack from your citizens or your residents, whether legal or illegal, that's a serious thing for this governor. And he's echoing something that we've seen from Democrats now for years. I remember Nancy Pelosi called federal agents in Seattle and Portland occupiers. Calling federal agents occupiers is exactly Fort Sumter language, exactly Confederate secessionist language, saying that these places, that the federal law has no place here, that the state is supreme to the law of the land, or that the governor is supreme to the president in this matter. Some of those things, to have a back and forth that dates back to classic the classic tug of war between states and the federal government. But when you cross the line into violence, calling federal officers occupiers, refusing to back them up, well, that's a whole different thing. And that's what I think Victor Davis Hanson is writing about in his excellent article that I linked to. This is rhetoric that goes back a long way in the United States, but it also has an extremely dark tradition, as Democrats like to point out repeatedly. California has a problem. It's not just people. Now, I guess you hear left-wing activists are handing out actually American flags. The problem that we've been seeing for the left that's been identified by Politico, hardly a conservative outlet, it's been identified by the New York Times, a total Democratic mouthpiece, is that they're not waving the flag of this country. And when you've got a state that won't back up the feds in that sort of situation, it is an absolutely terrible image. And it really draws down attention to what the president has been talking about these past couple of years, which is that this is not a story about families simply seeking better opportunity. It is a military-aged invasion by foreign males who don't owe allegiance to the United States. And in California, in the cities, it has led to rampant problems with organized gangs and organized crime. And in the California countryside, which is a much nicer and calmer place, it has led to massive cartel activity with illegal marijuana plants, farms sucking water off of this from the supply of that the residents are already rationed out because of droughts in the state. It's a serious issue they've set themselves up, and they're a tinderbox for this sort of enforcement.
Chris, what's hilarious to me is Newsom. You know, Newsom is you could call him a lefty, I guess, but I mean, Newsom doesn't really have beliefs. He was the bag man for Willie Brown when he was mayor in San Francisco, and he was really just one of the entrenched people in the 5 families who are all white, by the way, who have ruled California for decades. And, that's always kind of who he's been. And so it's interesting to see him squirm like this. And we all look forward to reading this column and thinking about his presidential chances because, what will he do as each day goes by? We will talk more with it about you. But I want to bring up something also near and dear and very important. And that is in your recent Beltway brief when you argued that the FBI was right to target Catholics. This got a lot of response. It was surprising. Chris, aren't you Catholic? And it was a wonderful inflammatory headline, but you should really unpack this wonderful article for our audience.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Matt. The reason I wrote this article is I was looking at the renewed interest and just how widely shared these anti-Catholic memos were within the FBI. Well over 1,000 agents had access or received this memo that targeted the Catholic faith as something that stood in opposition to the anti-life aspects of the federal government and pro-abortion aspects of it, stood in opposition to the gender-bending rejection of God's creation that is at the heart of so much of the modern Democratic mantra and party. Said that it identified Catholics as enemies of changing and shifting values, and as people who are tied to a set of beliefs that are unchanging and won't be simply swayed by what's popular in current culture. And so that these are the types of hotbeds of places where you're going to find political resistance to what the regime was up to under President Biden, and that so many Democrats are. And all that kind of strikes me as correct. Of course, the FBI memo tried to make it sound like this was dangerous, like this opposition was dangerous. I don't think it is. You're going to find a rather law-abiding people within these churches. But amongst those who attend Sunday Mass every Sunday, not just on holidays, and particularly amongst those who go for prefer a more orthodox version of Christianity in their Mass, there is widespread dissent against what the regime and what the globalists are doing. This is going to be the rock against which the Democratic Party crunches, and it's not because the Catholics have changed. We're unchanging in this regard. It's because the Democratic Party has positioned itself as one that is so aligned against the true and the good and the beautiful, even in art and architecture and in law and order. And there are different places where the bishops are going to align with the Democratic Party, like in the humane treatment of the needy and those people who come across our borders looking for aid and assistance. But there are other places, and it's at the core of the Democratic Party, that there is going to be massive, massive disagreement. So I wrote that obviously incendiary headline with the hopes of bringing people in and actually getting them to, as opposed to just saying, how dare you recognize that faithful Catholics are the enemy of the globalists. Recognizing, look around you in the pews, look around at who you're talking to and who your friends are, and how many of them recognize this evil that is sprung up in American society and Western society, and how much of them recognize it as such. And you'll realize, you know what, as far as the FBI is an enforcement tool for a secular state, then they may be onto something here.
Yes, that is very well said. And it's one of the reasons why we missed you so much, Bedford. And in fact,
I missed you too.
We missed you so much. We're actually going to be coming out to DC. We're going to get on a flight tomorrow morning and we're going to see you out there.
I can't wait. I'll see you at lunch.
Well, I haven't even told you this, but for our Q&A that we do every day with the audience, we're actually going to go through and do a Bedford Ask Me Anything. So you are going to be put on the spot and nothing will be off limits because I get to choose the questions. Bedford's just going to answer whatever you put out. We'll see you then.
See you then.